Recording is on.
So welcome to the, 13th Global Accessibility Awareness Day, May 15. And this is the third time in the Bitcoin design community that we're doing something for it. From humble beginnings, not knowing anything. Literally 2 years ago, I almost knew nothing about this stuff. Like if someone told me like put an area label and a button, I was like, I will, once I figure out what it is. But I think we've learned a lot. We've done a ton of stuff. Things are getting better. Now we have an expert here with Jason, which I'm very excited about. Who can really guide us in all this stuff. So yeah, I'm not gonna say very much. Thanks all for joining, and hand it over to Jason.
Thanks for the intro, Chris. And I'm still, Christoph, I'm still trying to figure out for some reason why my screen sharing is not working. So bear with me just a moment. It was working earlier. Okay, once again, it stopped working on me. So let's see if I can just share. Let me close one of my laptop screens. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, I guess something I said the last 2 years, and I'll say again because I think it's really good, is that Apple has this accessibility page, and the big headline is just "Make it yours." So I really like how that frames accessibility. That you make the technology works for you, the way you are, the way you work, and not you. It's not user error. The tech is wrong if it's not working for you. And people are super diverse. We're in many different situations every day. So this tech just needs to be flexible and so a way that adjusts to us. And I think that's a good framing for accessibility.
Okay, well, I got that screen to show up, so let's try that one. Maybe I can move it over there. Let's see here. Switch screens.
Do any of you here rely on accessibility features, something that you actively turn on?
I use the high contrast setting in Mac OS, actually. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful, especially in dark mode.
Oh, interesting. That's dark mode specific.
When I have had too much of time on my devices, such as the laptop and the phone, I find that my eyes get tired. So sometimes I'll make the text really big on my phone. But yeah.
Yeah, big and bold text. I see that a lot in the subway or bus or so. And young, old, anyone. And I think it might just be easier when you're holding a phone with one hand. It's the bus, maybe it's shaky or so. Easier to read when you're on the go. I see that one used quite a bit. What have you been using? Any particular feature?
When we had last year accessibility call, and we worked on some wallets for accessibility features. So I turned it on last year, and I'm still I'd never disabled it. So whenever I use my YouTube or anything, it's just there, like the arrows and everything.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm also super impressed by some of these, like especially Apple accessibility. Like if you look through all of these different needs and the kind of technology that's already available, and it's super fascinating.
All right, hopefully that's coming up now.
Yep.
Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, cool. I think we're about ready to get started. So yeah, welcome to Global Accessibility Awareness Day 2025. thank you, Christoph, for allowing us this opportunity to put on this workshop with Bitcoin Design. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the intro to disability use cases, some assistive technologies, and how that kind of fits into universal design. I'm hoping that this is a little bit of a collaborative event that we can interact with the assistive technologies, and if we want to go down a particular rabbit hole, we can certainly entertain that as well. So as you were mentioning, Christoph, why is accessibility important to Bitcoin? And I think it's really important to Bitcoin because if we want this to be global money that everybody's going to be able to use, it really needs to be accessible. We at least need to have some options that are fully accessible for every different user type that's out there, right? Some other reasons are, free open source software, it really aims to serve everyone. And Bitcoin is high stakes UX, right? It's really like a critical system in a lot of ways in that, when you make a mistake, when backing up your wallet, for example, it's really unforgiving. So we really want to make sure that those experiences, those user flows are as accessible as possible and are giving all the correct information to the users and the mode that they prefer. And then third, how Finney uses assistive technology and actually help contribute to Bitcoin while using assistive technology. So that's really a powerful point, in my opinion, that I think that we need to keep on touching on and getting people to understand. So some of our objectives today, we're going to talk about the disability use cases. We'll demo a little bit of assistive technology, and then we'll talk a little bit about the 7 principles of universal design. We'll have some opportunity this afternoon to dive in deeper to some of these concepts. And we'll definitely look at some more testing tools and design patterns and things like that this afternoon. But for today, I just kind of wanted us to get us started and just start playing around with the tools a little bit and seeing how these tools impact the different disability use cases. So I shared this last time, but I think it's important to go over again. So the disability use cases we're looking at here today, these are the main categories, I would say, are visual disabilities, so blindness, low vision, color blindness. I'm partially colorblind myself, so one example that I took away from Bitcoin last week was that there was a lot of really nice charts and graphs that some of these presenters were showing, but they were line graphs with color coding, and the colors were such that I couldn't quite tell which one was which. So just little things like that can make a big difference in ensuring that your content is accessible and understandable to everyone. There's cognitive and neuro disabilities, so things like ADHD, dyslexia, autism, as we're all a bunch of Bitcoin autists here, right? And memory issues. So I think I touched on memory issues last time, but for those who might not have been on the call, I've done some user testing with people with memory issues, particularly traumatic brain injury. And it's really interesting because a lot of them will have, or it's not a lot of them, but sometimes you'll have a particular case where somebody's short-term memory only lasts for 5 to 10 seconds or so. And so if you have a user flow that takes longer than that to get through, you really need to have like the steps lined out and very clearly understanding of where they're at in that user flow. Otherwise, their memory kind of resets a little bit. They kind of forget what they're doing, and they got to reorient themselves. And if they don't know where they're at, then they got to start back from the beginning. There's auditory disabilities, so deafness and hard of hearing. I'm pretty sure I fall into the latter category at this point in my life. Temporary environmental disabilities, so broken arm, noisy cafe, bright sunlight. I think we've talked about this numerous times in these calls, but it's good to kind of touch on them again just to make sure that everybody understands them. And then motor disabilities, things like limited mobility, tremors, and paralysis. So ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, which Hal Finney had, was a neurodegenerative disease, and yeah, that leads to very limited mobility and paralysis. And at the end of his career and in his life, he was using eye tracking technology to navigate and to write code. So that's it's really important that we understand the constraints of these different use cases and how we might be able to design for them. So in my research in the past, I've looked at what wallets are accessible to blind users in particular, because that is a really easy one to test, I think, but it's kind of hard for most developers to grok and to implement correctly. But in the past, there's been some attempts at this. This guy, Craig McGee at the bottom, he contributed to Icy Wallet. And, this was back in 2017 when he wrote that the biggest barriers to the blind are accessibility. Most of the wallets are difficult to use, and the Qt client interface doesn't work too well with the screen reader. I think we may have made some progress in that area, but I think it's still very lacking. And I think that for the most part, I don't know of any hardware wallet that is fully accessible. I do want to test out Jack Dorsey's one. What is it called again? The
BitKey.
BitKey, yes. That one may actually be fairly accessible, but I really haven't had a chance to take a look at the application and verify that the mobile app works with the screen reader. And then Gary Jordan is another guy that I've run across recently. I talked to him on Twitter a little bit, but he says, I'm blind. I'm currently researching the Bitcoin economy to see if this might help disabled people have a better life than receiving from a government begging bowl. And he is very appreciative of our efforts here to implement accessibility into Bitcoin. And I've talked with him on numerous occasions about that, and it makes him very excited. So it's important to reach out to users to get them to help you test some of this technology. Here's a quote from Hal Finney that I touched on last time, but I think it's really important once again to kind of touch on it again. So he says, today I'm essentially paralyzed. I'm fed through a tube and my breathing is assisted through another tube. I operate the computer using a commercial eye tracker system. It also has a speech synthesizer. So this is my voice now. I spend all day in my power wheelchair. I worked up an interface using an Arduino so that I can adjust my wheelchair's position using my eyes. So that said, I think I want us to just kind of jump into testing with the screen reader and seeing what you experience as you get it set up. So to help you get set up, if you have an iOS device, I would like you to take it out now. And I would like you to go to Settings, Accessibility, and VoiceOver. And when you get to VoiceOver, actually before you get to VoiceOver, you want to set up the accessibility shortcut at the bottom. So when you go to the settings and the accessibility screen, it's probably really hard for me to show here. At the very bottom of that screen, there's something called accessibility shortcuts. And if you open that screen up, it should give you a list of all the different assistive technologies that you can add to a shortcut. VoiceOver and voice control is one of those. If you turn on VoiceOver there, then when you triple tap the home button on your iOS device, it will bring up a context menu, which will allow you to select VoiceOver and turn on and turn off very quickly. So then to turn it off, all you need to do is triple tap on the left-hand side again. So does everyone here have an iPhone, or is everyone using Android, or we have a mixture of both? Okay.
An iPhone here.
Great. Okay. So that's how to turn on VoiceOver on iPhone. So for Android, it's very similar. Just go to Settings, Accessibility, then Talkback. And then you want to use the Talkback and Talkback shortcut. So Settings, then Accessibility. And then when you turn on this Talkback shortcut, what it's going to do is it's going to provide a floating series of buttons over on the left or right hand side, depending on how you have it set up. And you can move this thing around. And those buttons are really quick access settings to turn on TalkBack and turn it off, as well as turning on or turning off some other assistive technologies and testing tools. So let me know if everyone has been able to get either one of those working.
Yeah, I'm up and running. I don't know if you can hear it.
Voiceover practice button. Accessibility back button.
Excellent. I'm gonna wait for everybody else to make sure that everyone's on the same page here. So, Katie, how about you? Okay. Dave, are you able to set up your assistive technology on either one of these devices?
I'm still on it.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I'm still on it. I'm trying to set it up.
Okay, excellent. Just let me know if you need any help there. And who's bottom left there? Smiley face.
Yeah, I don't know if it works on Android, but on Siri you can also you can tell Siri on iOS to just turn on voiceover.
Yeah.
It's just kind of handy. But yeah, you do want those shortcuts. Those are super handy to have with that triple tap.
Yeah, and as a user who's concerned about privacy, I tend to turn Siri off, but that is a very good point that you can turn that on, and it'll make it a lot easier to access some of these settings. What about V? Were you able to get in?
Yep.
Excellent. So Dave, are you using TalkBack or are you using VoiceOver? Are you using iOS or Android?
Android.
Android, okay. So yeah, Android can be a little bit difficult because there's a bunch of different types of Android devices out there, right? So I generally like to tell people to test on a plain vanilla Android, such as a Google Pixel. But if you have a different flavor of Android, it may be a little bit different to find that setting, but it should still be under settings and accessibility. Do you not see it there at all, or do you see something different? It should say TalkBack.
Yeah, I can't see accessibility under the settings.
You can't find the accessibility settings?
Yes. Well, I think I'll just Google it out and try it.
Cool.
Yeah, on my Android device, it doesn't add floating buttons. It adds a fourth button to the bottom tab.
Okay.
Like a little outline of a person.
Which version of Android do you have?
It's a 3-year-old Samsung Galaxy something.
Yeah, Samsung definitely does it slightly different than Google Pixel, the plain vanilla version. And then there's other versions of TalkBack too on other devices, like for example on a Fire OS device, which is something that Amazon manufactures. They use Voice View, which is just a fork of TalkBack. Okay, Jonah, see you just joined us. What we're doing right now is we're trying to get our screen meters turned on either iOS or Android. So if you can see my screen, if you're using Android, you go to accessibility under settings, and then go to TalkBack, and then you want to toggle use TalkBack and then use the TalkBack shortcut so that you can easily turn it off. If you're using VoiceOver, you go to accessibility and then VoiceOver. It's pretty simple. But there's also a way to set up on iOS the accessibility shortcuts, which are at the very bottom of that accessibility settings screen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the next section here. And if you're having trouble catching up, that's fine. Just go ahead and ask questions, and we'll help you get there. But what I want us to do now is kind of just open up our favorite Bitcoin wallet, whatever that may be. And I want you to try to navigate the home screen using either TalkBack or VoiceOver. I want to give everyone about 5 minutes to do that. So we'll go ahead and get it started right now. Does everybody have a favorite Bitcoin wallet that they want to test?
I'm testing Phoenix right now.
Cool.
They, I think they just rolled out an update to their receive screen today or in the last few days.
And I'll be testing Proton wallet. They also had an update just recently.
VoiceOver on. Proton wallet. Button. Image. Menu. My wallet. Heading. Button. Image.
Yeah, I'm still hearing some unlabeled buttons. Some things are not announcing.
All accounts. $0 1 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 BTC. Start your journey. Add Bitcoins to your wallet. Explore Proton wallet. Image. I. Receive.
This is so fun.
Yeah, I love the address readouts.
Yeah, 100%. Like read out a string of 26 because, you know, or 28 numbers and letters because, you know.
Yeah.
Invite your friends. Secure your wallet transactions.
Yeah.
Receive button. Bitcoin got.
So what I'm experiencing on Proton Wallet is they have some buttons
Transactions.
that are labeled, some buttons that are unlabeled, so they're announcing as buttons. And then they have some, I guess, images that are supposed to be buttons, but they're not actually buttons. So you can tap on them and activate them, but if you use a screen reader like VoiceOver to navigate to them, they just don't announce anything at all, right? So that's definitely concerning. But it looks like they might have fixed a few things from the last time I was in here. We can do a little bit more testing this afternoon as well. I'm curious about everyone else. We got about 2.5 minutes left. So go ahead and continue testing with your favorite wallet, and then we'll kind of talk about our
All
experiences here.
accounts. $0 1
What I'm seeing in Phoenix is it's overall pretty good. In the new receive screen, there's like there's a tab system with 2 tabs. One is single use, one is reusable, but they don't act as tabs. They tell me that each of those are a button. So I feel like that's not right. It should tell me like it's an either or type of control and not 2 separate buttons. Because if I didn't see them visually that they're part of the same thing, I just wouldn't know it. And then at the bottom, when you switch between Lightning and on-chain, there are 2 icons, a little Lightning symbol and the chain link. And that chain link icon, which takes me to an on-chain address, it's just labeled link, right? Which is just not helpful.
Not very useful, right?
Yeah.
So with the tabs at the bottom, when you select one, does it change the color to show you which one is selected visually?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if that's the case, then it should also be providing that information programmatically to the screen reader user. So what you want to ensure is that not only is it labeled correctly, but it's also using a button role or a similar interactive role, like a tab, and that it's announcing the selected state of that tab, right? So it should say, I'm not sure what the tab names are, but whatever the name of the tab is, the type of role that it is, and that it's selected. So if it's not announcing that it's selected, then you really don't know whether you've activated it or not. So
yeah, so those Lightning and on-chain tabs, the Lightning symbol, it just reads out flash dimmed button.
Yeah.
That is the selected
that
Lightning
actually,
tab.
So flash dimmed button, yeah. it's interesting because I think that may be a native component that they're trying to pull in there. Because I know that I've heard that on some other components, like to turn on the flashlight or to turn on the flash on a camera, and testing in the past. Yeah.
How about everyone else?
I've been using it with a different language. I've been using cashew.me and I put it in Greek language. And one of the things I noticed is that it reads some of the icons in English and a lot of the text it actually reads in Greek. But when I click on icons like the copy, the eyeball, the back button, it'll read it in English. So I wonder if that's because the cashew.me developers maybe didn't put the alt link in the language.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably it. The text for those labels is probably just not in the localization files.
Yeah, say that one more time. The last part.
So the icons, like the backlink, it'll actually read it in English, but it'll read
in English. Gotcha. Yeah. That's definitely an internationalization issue. Yeah, they just are not. So is this app? It allows you to switch between different languages, right? This is Zeus, or this is Cashew.
Cashew.me, yeah. So it has wide language support, and I mean, for the most part, it reads it in the language that I select. It's just some of the buttons and links. It'll read it'll describe the button in English, like copy.
Yeah, it's probably because the default is English, and they're not programmatically changing the name of the control in the background whenever you switch. That's a common issue. What about everybody else? Our 5 minutes is about up. So, Katie, V, Jonah, Toby, Dave.
Yeah, I did it on Blink, and there many buttons are like unlabeled, so it's difficult.
Okay, excellent. That's a good insight. Thank you, V.
Yeah. Last time I did it for Zeus, and they also had all the buttons unlabeled, I guess.
Yeah, and Zeus has done a good job at fixing a lot of those, right? Last time I checked, I didn't hear any unlabeled buttons, but I didn't do a really deep dive in the testing, just kind of a cursory test. But yeah, it seemed like they'd improved quite a lot. And another thing you could test if you wanted to is just this Meet.Jitsi app, right? So I know on iOS it's fairly accessible. My colleague John Herzog, who was with us last time, when we were setting up for the initial call that we did, we were testing Jitsi to see how accessible it was, and everything was properly labeled. Everything was announcing the selected state. It was actually pretty good for a video conferencing software. And John and I have worked on video conferencing software in the past, and we've had many video conferencing projects that we've worked on that are completely inaccessible and just terrible. So it's really good to see that Jitsi put some work in there.
WhatsApp checking for new messages.
And it's an open source tool. So that's cool. What about Toby, Jonah, Dave? Anybody else? You want to share your experience?
Well, I got CoinOS or Coinos working fine by D here. Comment about that. I hear a lot about Coinos or CoinOS. Not sure how you pronounce it, but I haven't actually checked it out myself.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so is everyone able to turn off their screen readers now? Just raise your hand if you can, and I'll help you. It's a little bit harder than a workshop that I would normally do in person because I could walk around and kind of show you. But yeah, to turn it off on iOS, you want to do a triple tap on the left control button or the home button, and then it should bring up the context menu, and you can double tap on VoiceOver, and that will turn it off. Similarly with Android, depending on which flavor of Android you're using, if you have the quick access buttons enabled, you should see them on the front of the screen. You should be able to tap the one that looks like a little dialog box, and that one will announce as VoiceOver. Double tap it, and that will activate it. So that's one thing about screen reader gestures is you want to use like a swipe to the left, to the right, or the left. A single swipe is going to navigate you to the next element in the interface, right? So if it's a web page, it would be the next element in the DOM, the document object model. And if you swipe backwards, it should take you back up in that hierarchy. But if you want to select something that's actionable, you want to double tap on it, and that will activate it. But there's a lot of other assistive technologies that are built in phones nowadays that I recommend that you play around with and test. So there's screen magnifiers. We have browser zoom built in. So Android has it as one of the quick access settings. iOS has it as well. They also have on iOS this thing called dynamic type, which allows you to scale the text up quite significantly, and the text will get really big, and it will reflow within the containers that you've set up if done properly. But you want to test things at 200% zoom and 400% zoom on a desktop, just because that's generally the areas where things start to break down. But you want to make sure that everything from 100% up to 400% is being represented appropriately. So whenever you're zooming in on a desktop to do some testing, if you start to see containers overlapping or content that's getting cut off or things that aren't reflowing properly, then that's an issue for screen magnifier users that you want to fix. Some other things that you can check or you can test with a keyboard. So any one of these phones can be set up with a Bluetooth keyboard. So I have this one in the background. It's a Logitech. It's actually a pretty good model. I forget the exact model of it, but it has a switch on there where you can switch between 3 different devices, and you can set them up in advance. And so then you can use a Bluetooth keyboard to navigate your app on iOS and Android. And that's very helpful because that's going to ensure that you are making it accessible to switch control users, single switch users, eye tracking, things like that. So any type of alternative input device is really going to work in a very similar way, where if you can tab through the elements with a keyboard and you can get through your app and navigate it with a keyboard, you can probably navigate it with a single switch device or eye tracking device, etc. And then we also have voice control, which is built into iOS, and it's called voice control on iOS. So that's also under the accessibility settings. When you turn that on, you could say things like tap send or scroll down, and then it will actually find the button that says send and it will tap it for you, or it'll scroll down on the screen. But what's really important to look out for here is if you see that a button is labeled send, but for some reason in the background it might have an accessible name of go. When you say tap send, it doesn't do anything, right? So that's something to look for. Is you want to ensure that the accessible name, the programmatically accessible name, is the same as the visual name that you see, because voice control users are going to be looking for the label of the button, and they're going to say, tap whatever that label they see. And if it's not the same, then it won't work. So similarly with TalkBack, you have these settings as well. They're in the accessibility menu. And this one is called, on TalkBack, it is voice access. And I just started playing around with voice access last night, and it's not as intuitive as I'd hoped, but probably just because I haven't used it that much. Okay, so I have a quick little video here I want to show just to kind of give people a better context of how somebody with switch control might use this technology. So let me know if you... That's an AAC controller. Again, that was just something interesting that I came across yesterday and thought it would be good to show.
Can you
But yeah,
actually,
it's
sorry, can you actually just say what a switch is real quick? Is it just
So
like a single button?
it's like a single button that you can, like in the video, he was showing that he was using his foot to tap a button because he could move his foot to the side and tap it. He was using his elbow to tap a button. He was using his head to tap a button. So it's a single switch control that could be used with switch access software. And iOS and Android both have switch access software built into it. So if you go into the accessibility settings, you can turn it on. There's a couple different modes that you can use. And one of them that he was showing there is where it's scanning, right? So it'll scan all the interactive elements on the screen. And then when you land on the one that you want to select, you tap the button, right? And so this is for people with motor disabilities that can't use fine dexterity to use a mouse, for example. And there's a couple of different modes for that. You can have it go up and down. You can have it go left to right. You can have it go bottom up. And you get multiple switches. And it gets a little bit more complex, but it really depends on the setup and the particular needs of the individual. But you can test to see what elements would be focusable with the switch by using the switch scanner on iOS or Android.
Gotcha. So this is basically the minimal thing. Like someone can press a button, but they cannot control necessarily how long they can press it or press it like on the left side or right side. They can just press it at a certain time. So the interface is being read out to them over and over, or like in a loop or so. And then when a thing comes up that they care about, they just press that button. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, they could be using it with a screen reader, and then it might be announcing everything as it goes through and it scans. But if they're not using a screen reader, it would just visually show like a focus indicator moving across the screen. And then when you see it lands on the button that you want, you just tap the button.
So they have to be able to respond kind of quickly then.
You can change the settings on that to make it a little bit slower. So if you want to, you can turn it way down and have it go pretty slow.
Gotcha. Yeah, the name switch is a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it's really just an alternate input device. And he was using it with an AAC device, which is an alternative augmented communication device, which is really just a simplified operating system that allows you to select some big buttons and navigate, perform basic tasks like typing an email. So we'll move on here since we don't have a whole lot of time, and we're going to cover some stuff this afternoon as well. But I want us to take a look at a persona exercise. So we have this Bitcoin UI kit, which I think is very useful. So I don't know if everyone has access to it, but I think we should go ahead and open it up. If you do, so we'll go ahead and post this in the chat. So that's the Bitcoin UI kit. And go back to my, where'd it go? Here it is. Exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with a user persona representing a real disability use case. And our goal is to choose one user flow from the Bitcoin UI kit and identify where a common Bitcoin wallet interface might break for them. So I have a couple of predefined personas that we're going to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign folks to them, and then we'll switch out into a breakout room to quickly discuss the UI kit and what that persona might have issues with. So the first persona is Gary, the blind Bitcoiner. So he uses Android with TalkBack to send and receive sats, and he avoids wallets that require QR scanning with no alternatives. So V, why don't you join up with Christoph on that one?
Okay, cool. So how do we do a breakout room?
Yeah, so there's a way to do it over here. Let's go ahead and add it real fast. Add breakout. There it is. So let me go ahead and create one for.
Since I'm doing the recording, is it gonna break anything?
I'm not sure. I mean, we can just talk through these as well, right? So, so we have 5 of them, and we have 5 breakout rooms that we can join. So I'll just name this first one Gary. Oops. And the next one we have is Anna, who has a motor impairment. She uses an iPad switch control with voice navigation. And she prefers interfaces that support keyboard and voice control inputs. We also have Jay, who has low vision. And he relies on 200% zoom and high contrast modes. And he uses magnification software. He prefers large, well-spaced elements. Then we also have Mo, who is neurodivergent. She has ADHD, finds complex, cluttered layouts overwhelming, benefits from consistent UI, fewer user distractions, and step-by-step flows. And finally, we have Abdi, who's an outdoor worker. He accesses wallets on a cracked phone in bright daylight with spotty data and is partially colorblind. He needs high contrast, clear visibility, and offline-friendly workflows. Sorry, I just jumped into the breakout room on accident. Name this last one, and just go ahead and assign folks. All right, so we think we have a couple folks assigned for Gary. Who wants to do Anna? Okay, tell you what, just join the room that you are interested in.
I'm
then
confused.
We'll discuss that. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't see any rooms. I don't know how to join rooms.
Okay, you don't see any. Interesting.
Where would it be?
It's under the participants. So if you click on the participants panel,
okay,
it should show up.
Oh yeah, I see them now.
5 different rooms there.
Oh, you have to scroll down. Okay.
Yeah.
It filled the list of people filled my own screen, and I couldn't.
I just found this
okay.
feature the other day, so
okay.
I was hoping that you might know, but no worries.
well hidden. It's very cool though. So I think I was part of Gary, so I'm gonna hop into Gary.
Okay, so hop into Gary's. We need at least 1 volunteer for Anna.
And when should I be back? Is there a way to get people back or something?
Just talk it over. Walk through one of the Bitcoin UI kit flows. I would say pick an easy flow that you can get through in 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay, cool. I'll hop in there.
Okay.
Hello.
We're doing Gary.
Yeah, Gary was blind, right?
Yeah. He was blind and he uses Bitcoin wallet for sending and receiving sats.
Yeah. Okay. How about we start with receiving? Have you?
Receiving.
Let me share. You see the Bitcoin UI kit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll also share the link real quick.
I have the link.
You got it? Okay, cool. So yeah, the QR code thing is going to be a problem for him.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's that's the main problem I think that is there for. So I have this blink. I'm doing it side by side. How to do it?
Receive screen.
If I'm blind.
Double tap to activate. $.
Mm.
QR code.
Well, the starting
Copy.
point is that
Double tap
Gary
to
will
activate.
start on the home screen. That's where both the send and the receive begins. And at the top,
Yeah.
there's an amount input, which should have to be announced, and then they would have to go through the keyboard, and then you have to press a request button. And then after when they press request, the next screen shows up, and it would tell them share payment request. So they're not reliant on the QR code. There's actually a share option. So it seems like that should be okay.
Yeah. They can copy and share also, or yeah, they can just share. So that's not really a problem, is it?
Seems okay.
Valid before 9/7. Copy. QR code.
So there are these little dots at the bottom. I'm not sure how those would work. Those allow you to navigate through different payment requests like Bitcoin, Lightning, all that stuff. So as long as those are well announced, it
Yeah.
should be okay.
I have that problem with the buttons because my phone, you have screens, like you don't have a menu, so you have all the apps on the screen, so you have to like
Only for you stars. Truck get free delivery.
do the slide thing. But this was really like I couldn't do it instantly, so I went to it and it said unlabel. Then after some time, it said double click and hold and drag. So that's how I did it. But if I was blind, I don't know how I would reach to my desired apps.
Yeah, you need some type of
But
pagination
yeah,
on
for
there.
that, maybe we can have.
Service checking for messages.
Yeah. So maybe for lightning and everything, we can just have a button, maybe. If he wants to share the lightning or on chain
Yeah.
or pay code,
Recent searches. Feature. Now.
like it has in Blink.
Yeah, that's the question.
Double tap
There's
to
a lot of
activate.
kind of even though the pagination at the bottom may not have a label that's visible to the person, you can have accessibility labels that will be read out. So
Receive screen.
if something's obvious for a person who can see well, but the context is missing for a person who can see well, you can add those additional labels, which should still be okay, I think. So I don't know how explicit, like if you need a label or buttons with text or whatnot, you may not need it. But yeah, tricky one. I feel like it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Sending is quite complex.
Sending is complex, yes. So first, he would click on pay. The first homepage is similar, then adding the amount.
Well, the thing is,
And
you type the amount. Let's say whether I want to receive 1,000 sats or send 1,000 sats, I type in 1,000, and then I press request or pay. Like this is already I'm already entering information here, and then once I've entered the amount, then I decide if I want it to request or to pay, what I want to do next. If that makes sense.
mhm. But isn't it that we first know that we want to receive or send and then and then decide how much
Yeah, I mean, this is what Cash App does, for example.
we
That's how the
think?
app is set up. And one of the reasons
Mhm.
why it's set up that way, so a lot of other wallets, they show you your balance first. But exposing your balance in
Yeah.
public can be really awkward, right? So that's one of the
Yes.
reasons why this getting you into the send or receive as fast as we can is the
Mhm.
starting point here.
Folder. Screen off.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so he is adding 1,000 sats and then paying, and then clicking on pay,
Mhm.
and then he goes to
7:25 p.m.
So then he would go to
Screen.
this screen but the amount would be already entered.
yeah. But will the amount be said, like how much it is
Yeah, whatever you
in
typed in on the
total?
previous screen. If you typed in 25,000
Okay.
sats on the previous screen, it would show 25,000 here.
Hmm.
So then you would just
It'll
need to
speak that
enter the
25,000.
address.
Hmm. How do you enter the address?
Yeah, so if you have a contact list, you go to your contact list and you choose a person from there. And if not, then you can use the button at the bottom to scan a QR code, for example, that's an address. Or if you already have it on a clipboard, you can paste it into the input field. So there are multiple options here.
Yeah. Then it's easy.
Screen. 1.
Yeah, everything seems okay. I mean, scanning is not helpful
Yeah.
for a person who can't really work with the camera,
Uh-huh.
right?
Even sending, we send it, sometimes you just scan it and you have like the invoice has the sats. That's also how you send.
Yes.
So you just scan it and then the sats. Does it speak how many sats it has? I have no idea.
You can make it. You can make it announce the amount.
Okay, then that's easier. We can just scan and pay someone. That's easy.
Yeah, I mean, it gets very complicated if, let's say, you manually enter the amount, you manually enter the address, you add a new contact, you write a note. If you do all this stuff, then it gets pretty long, the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Service. Checking messages.
Oh, how about we hop back into the other room because it's already almost,
Swami.
the hour is
Double tap
almost
to
up.
activate.
Yeah. We figured it out.
Exactly. It's all good. It's perfect. Why am I
Yeah.
I'm like 10 times in this room. Do you see that too?
No.
In my sidebar where it says participants, I'm in there 12 times. No?
Really?
Yeah, that's what it shows.
No, not for
Oh,
me.
okay. All right, I'll see
Not
you in
for
the main
me.
room, okay?
Yeah. See you.
By just saying the name of the button, right? Is it going to match up correctly in the back end? So there might be a lot of unknowns there.
Yeah, I
might have
see.
questions
Okay.
around to ask the developers later as you start to get into the implementation, right?
Okay. I think everyone is coming back.
Yep, looks like it.
Me and I
All
are
right, was
back.
everybody able to get through a user flow and kind of figure out what might be challenging for that user?
Yep.
Cool.
Good exercise.
All right. Let's go ahead and just share real quickly then what we discovered. So I'll let you, Christoph, go first with Gary.
Oh, I mean, with Gary, the problem was the QR codes, but I think it's okay in the UI kit, the screens, because there are alternative options to share
Okay.
and copy and use NFC. I don't know how helpful is that is for communicating payment information. But I feel like it's okay, like that the sharing a payment request, if it's properly marked up. There's also at the bottom some pagination dots to switch between different types of QR codes, unified, on-chain, lightning. But I think those can be marked up correctly.
They can, yeah, but that's an area of concern, right? So you would want to, as the implementation is being developed, you want to make sure that that those little dots on the bottom, right, that they're acting as pagination widgets, and that they're either acting as buttons or some other common design pattern, and that they're announcing which one is selected, right? Because that's very important.
Yeah, it has to announce what it is controlling in the first place, and then kind of which one's selected, and then when you make a change, that it announces the change. Like, you're now seeing this other thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because accessibility a lot of times falls in between design and development, right? So it might be something that you bring up as a note on your Figma file and so to come back to later, right, as you're implementing it, but it may not be something that you can catch directly in the design itself. So
yeah, there's no real place. Like you just said, you can add notes, but that's not really like proper documentation. That's just like a comment somewhere, right?
Yeah,
it's not
would
in
you
your face.
recommend something else in that regard?
Oh, how to document it?
Yeah.
No, I think I really, I think too many times designers and developers don't communicate enough. I think the developers should be part of the design process from the beginning, and designers should be there all the way through. And there should be, before something gets implemented, there should just people get together and talk through, like, how we're going to do this, what is it, talk through all the different elements and maybe how they should interact and all of the stuff. And the accessibility stuff should be part of that conversation.
Yeah. And then you can create a component design pattern library, right?
Yeah, just like writing stuff in notes that you expect other people to somehow find is very risky.
Right.
Endeavor.
I meant more for like you to come back to later, just to remind yourself so that you can get on a call with the developers and say, oh, this is what we need to look for this particular type of element in the UI.
Yeah, I don't think Figma is good for design documentation. I think there needs to be a separate place for it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, what about Anna? Do we have anything come out of that one? So, Lola, I'm not sure if you're trying to say something. Okay. Well, I'll just kind of walk through some of this. So Anna has motor impairment. She's using an iPad, switch control, and voice navigation. So she's going to have issues if buttons are not properly labeled. She's going to have issues if a UI has improper keyboard support. And so a lot of those things are going to be really difficult to find in the design, I would say. So once again, this is something where you would want to take a note somewhere for yourself to get back with the developers later during implementation to verify that they understand the needs of this user and how they might interact with some of these controls. Yeah, so that one's pretty, it's a little bit difficult to understand in the design aspect. I mean, I guess you could think about some affordances for like voice input into forms, right? It really depends on which user flow you're looking at, right? So if it's like for a username and password, you could provide some of the standard autocomplete solutions there, so that if there is a, so they don't have to announce their username or password vocally, and they can just select from a set of predefined usernames and passwords that they've already used. So some things like that can be very helpful. But other than that, yeah, it's really about making sure that the labels that you see visually on the screen are actually what they're labeled in the UI. Okay. So Jay, low vision, who had that one? Okay. Okay, well, Jay relies on zoom and high contrast modes. So he's going to want to ensure, we're going to want to ensure that we have decent contrast to begin with the user flows we're looking at there. And we want to make sure that when we zoom in, that it reflows properly. At 200% zoom, though, we probably don't have a whole lot of reflow. We just want to make sure that it's not overlapping and that we're not clipping anything off or cutting out any content that's core to the UI. And he uses magnification software, so the operating system should be able to provide that. And he likes well-spaced elements, so there's this thing called text spacing, which you can test with on desktop and web. A little bit more difficult to test on Android or iOS. There's not really a good way to test that right now. But if you're dealing with a web application, you can use a bookmarklet that will expand the spacing of the text. And that's really going to help for folks who have maybe dyslexia and they see rivers of text when the letters are spaced too close together.
I have a question around Zoom.
Sure.
So let's say Zoom 200%. Like if you make the QR code twice as big, it's bigger than the screen. So there must be, you probably must be able, like as a designer, you might be able to say like there are limits to how some of these things scale, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that would be something that's essential to the use of the application, right? Is that you don't scale the QR code past the size of the screen. Mm-hmm. So that would be a reasonable constraint to have in that particular design, I would say.
And but let's say 200% zoom, so that let's say the text is bigger, but would you also does everything scale 200%, like the button sizes, or like if the text is bigger but the button stays the same because there's plenty of space, like mm-hmm. this is it like a literal just double in size, or is it?
Well, this is for text resizing only, right?
This text only, okay.
The buttons don't need to resize unless the container is too small, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, then you can resize the buttons. And you don't need to show all of the buttons and controls that you initially showed. You can hide some things, right, behind a context menu, for example. Mm-hmm. So, if you're running out of design space when you zoom in, you can certainly put some things into a hamburger menu that the user can access from there.
Interesting, yeah.
And enlarge everything else that's core to that task. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Mo, who had Mo?
Yes, Mo is here.
Not this Mo.
So that was fun. Toby, would you like to share maybe? Because I think it's great if you, yeah. Shall I just share my screen, Toby, and you talk?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so we went through some of these flows and, we actually, I think I think so, was it Abdi we did for?
Go to this one.
Okay, yes, I think it was fair. So Abdi is basically going to struggle with a lot of contrast here because, like we mentioned, his screen isn't that great, and if you don't have good contrast, there's no way he's going to be able to read most of this information. Then I think there was somewhere else
yeah, you were doing Abdi, right? Yeah
he's colorblind.
That would make sense. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah, like here also, like the adlet and the ad tags, contrast isn't great. So he's also going to struggle to see things like this too. And again, where there was another place where I saw, where we noticed the gray and also the orange. Okay, I think if you move towards the left, yes, keep going. I can't. Okay, no, keep going again. Okay, I don't think I can't really find the page now, but
what about like the Sorry. Quickly on this screen. So you were talking about contrast being potentially an issue. What about the and the color
yes,
color used to code things, right? So like the transact is selected because it's orange. Is there some other way that we could provide an affordance there for somebody that has a colorblind disability, right? So perhaps we could provide an underline there, or bold the text, or do something else to indicate that that is selected, right? That would be one of my suggestions.
Yeah, it's my thoughts also.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's it from us.
Cool. And then I'll go real quickly. So Eric and I had Mo, who's neurodivergent. So we looked at the cloud backup. Let's see. Eric, do you want to share that screen again? Still there?
1 second. Pulling it up now. Cloud backup. Here it is.
And we're a few minutes over. I hope.
Is it visible?
Yep.
Yes, I can see it. Excellent. Yeah, so just to kind of quickly go through this, we looked at the cloud backup. So some of the things that we found here, which might be a little bit might be helpful actually, is that there is consistent navigation, right? So the back control is in a consistent place everywhere. The step is explained in the title, so you don't have to look very far down the screen to understand what step in the process you're in, right? So choose a 4-digit PIN, choose a password. It's very clear and upfront in the title. Or we found some issues where the Learn More button is a little bit inconsistent with some of the other buttons. So this one is just orange text, whereas some of the other buttons, actually have a background to them. So it's kind of hard to tell if this is a button, is this a link? It may be something that gets missed if you're trying to find out more information. Text-centered versus left-aligned. So that was another thing, a little bit of inconsistency there. We found some centered text and some left-aligned text, which wasn't always consistent. So it can make parsing that information a little bit more tedious for somebody with a neurodivergent disability. And then last thing, see how it works. Okay, so the how it works section. So this is nice. It's very useful information, but we feel like it could be broken up a little bit more into steps with numbers, or maybe even providing some UI elements that are commonly understood that like an icon, like of keys, for example, for the first part, or but numbering would definitely help. Breaking that up a little bit better with some maybe darker lines or some other ways of presenting that information, because it looks very similar to the Apple iCloud and Google Drive buttons, right? And those are a standard design pattern in iOS, is to provide these kind of these links or buttons in this fashion with this caret facing to the right. And all they have is this single line that separates them, right? So looking at how it works, it's kind of hard to tell. Is this something that I can tap on to find out more information? Is it a button? It just could be organized, maybe a little bit more visually. It could stand out a little bit more visually in how it's organized with some numbering or some icons there, I think.
Wall of text.
Yeah, a bit of a wall of text, yeah. So that's what we had. All right, so we got through the discussion. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. We're almost done here. We're going to do a lot more this afternoon. Let's see, share. But yeah, I just wanted to talk real quickly about the principles of universal design. So, how do these things go into making Bitcoin wallets accessible? So equitable use. So design is usable by people with abilities. So these 7 principles of universal design were something that came up in, I think it was like the 90s. I think it was like 96 or 97. I think it was maybe even by one of the Xerox Park research teams. Regardless, it's a very well-established standard, and it's been around for quite a long time, and it's referenced in a lot of technical standards related to accessibility and universal design. But equitable use for a wallet, that might mean that it works equally well with screen readers and visually. We have things like flexibility in use, accommodates a wide range of preferences and abilities. So in a Bitcoin wallet, that might be a backup flow that supports copy and paste, QR scan, text-to-speech, or near-field communications. So having those different alternate modalities is going to be very helpful in flexibility in use. Simple and intuitive use. It's easy to understand regardless of experience or cognitive ability. So yeah, once again, we want to minimize jargon, technical jargon specifically if we can help it. Use familiar icons and step-by-step flows for sending Bitcoin. Perceptible information. That communicates essential info clearly across sensory differences. So an example in a Bitcoin wallet might be having a high contrast, having an icon with a label so that it's very clear what that icon is for, with a text label. And then having text alternatives for QR codes so that the user knows the QR code's on the screen if they're using a screen reader, so they can present that QR code to get paid. Things like tolerance for error is another one. And that means minimizing risks and adverse consequences. So we're dealing with payment technology here. It's a very critical system. So we want to ensure that we require confirmation before sending large amounts or erasing a wallet or doing anything that might be irreversible. And this is also part of the WCAG 2.2 standards related to banking and financial transactions. You need to ensure that there's a way for the user to confirm what they're about to do and that they're aware of the consequences before any irreversible actions take place. Another one is low physical effort. So it can be used with minimal fatigue or dexterity. So a lot of times you don't think about this with software applications, but having large tap targets is going to be helpful for somebody who has tremors, for example, right? They may not be able to have fine dexterity. So they might be tapping on the screen trying to get something. And if they have to do it a bunch of times, it's going to be a little bit tedious for them. And it's going to be a lot more physical effort. Support for keyboard navigation is going to be helpful there. Avoiding rapid interactions. Another thing is providing a way for the user to skip past repetitive content, right? So if you're using a screen reader or a keyboard and you have to tab through 100 things in a carousel to get to the next line, that's going to be very intense physical effort for somebody who has a disability already, who's having difficulty even using a keyboard, and has to use that key over and over and over and over again just to get partially down the page, right? So providing a way to skip past that. And then, very good, transaction list. And then size and space for approach and use. This is usually something you hear more about in like physical spaces. But essentially UI fits various screen sizes and input methods is another way to look at it. So making sure that we have appropriate zoom and reflow at 200 and 400%, as I mentioned previously. So responsive design that supports magnification, one-headed use, and switch input. So those are some of the principles of universal design. And that's how I think that they can apply to Bitcoin and accessibility. So with that, should be our last slide here. So is there any questions? Anything you'd like to see this afternoon? I'm still actually working on some content for this afternoon. And we can go a number of different directions there. But I think diving a little bit deeper on the tools, diving a little bit deeper on the design patterns and the ways to fix things, or where to find, correct design patterns to use would be helpful for this afternoon. But questions?
Considering we have like another 3 hours of workshops today, maybe we should just chat later. I'm ready to chat later. But
I'm gonna
I
have
don't
to
know.
skip the next call,
yeah.
but I'll join. So the next accessibility call, I'll skip it, but I will join the one later. So there's three. This is 1,
Yes.
2, 3. I'll skip 2. I'll join
So
on.
the next one is actually going to be just an office hours. So bring anything that you want to take a look at, right?
Okay.
I have somebody that actually reached out to me yesterday that brought something that we will take a look at in the office hours if they show up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason. This was very, very well put together. Very nice.
Sure.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
I love the depth, and I really appreciate the critique of the using the UI kit for. There's a bunch of stuff there that we can probably improve.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And as Jason said, for those of you who might have missed that, bring your questions to the next session because he's there to support you. It's an office hours.
Please. Yes.
In 40 minutes?
Yep.
40 minutes, I believe. Yeah. A little less than an hour. All right.
All right.
Thanks, all.
Bye, everyone.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
I'm going to stop the recording.